Kindness. It's a word that carries warmth, light, and the promise of goodwill. Yet, hidden in the folds of this seemingly virtuous trait lies a darker reality. Sometimes, the kindness you extend becomes the very weapon used to control you, to manipulate your actions, and to shackle your soul. This is not a lesson taught lightly, but one drawn from the deep well of Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic thinker, once wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." But what happens when tolerance becomes acquiescence? When your kindness feeds the selfish appetites of those who see generosity as a weakness to exploit? Today, we explore 8 powerful Stoic lessons about how kindness, when unchecked, can become dangerous, not for others but for you. Together, we will learn how to wield kindness wisely, anchored by the unshakable strength of self-control and wisdom. Number 1. The danger of losing boundaries. Kindness, when unguarded, has the power to erode the very foundations of your individuality. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, aptly said, "You must live for yourself before you can live for another." Yet, how often do we forget this wisdom in the name of pleasing others? When kindness lacks boundaries, it ceases to be virtuous, it becomes servitude. Picture this. You're the dependable friend, the ever-supportive colleague, or the understanding partner. Every time someone asks for a favor, your instinct is to say, yes. You tell yourself it's because you're compassionate. But deep within, another reality festers. The fear of rejection, the dread of confrontation, or perhaps the false belief that your worth lies solely in how much you give to others. When kindness becomes an obligation rather than a choice, it starts to corrode your sense of self. Your boundaries dissolve and your priorities blur. You begin to feel resentment, not towards others, but towards yourself for allowing this erosion to happen. Seneca's warning rings true here. The greatest loss of time is delay and expectation, which depend on the future. We let go of the present, which we have in our power. The Stoics understood that unchecked kindness leads to imbalance. By constantly putting others' needs above your own, you forfeit the present moment to the demands of others. This is not strength, it is surrender. True kindness, as the Stoics saw it, is not about pleasing everyone. It's about discerning when to give and when to hold back. It is a balanced act of reason, driven by inner strength and guided by wisdom. This is where boundaries become critical. Setting them is not selfish, it is essential. Think of boundaries as the walls that protect your inner citadel, a concept central to Stoic thought. Without these walls, you are vulnerable to invasion, not just by others, but by the chaotic emotions their demands stir within you. Boundaries preserve your energy, your time, and most importantly, your peace of mind. Remember, kindness without discernment is chaos in disguise. Only by learning to say no can we ensure our yes carries true value. Number 2. The burden of over-accommodating others. Imagine you're a ship in calm waters, yet every passing traveler loads their cargo onto you. At first it seems harmless, a few bags here, a small crate there. But soon the ship starts to sink, weighed down by burdens it was never meant to carry. Such is the consequence of over-accommodating others under the guise of kindness. Epictetus, the Stoic sage, emphasized, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. This isn't a call to isolation, but an acknowledgement that trying to please everyone will often make you lose sight of your purpose. When you stretch yourself thin to accommodate every request, every expectation, you inadvertently train people to take you for granted. You create a pattern where your time, energy, and kindness are treated as infinite resources. But the Stoics remind us, our resources are finite. Time, above all, is our most precious asset. Over-accommodating others not only depletes your resources, but also erodes your inner peace. You may find yourself agreeing to commitments that drain you, simply to avoid conflict or to maintain an image of selflessness. But in doing so, you betray the most important commitment, the one you owe to yourself. Epictetus advised that we focus on what lies within our control, our actions, our thoughts, and our choices. By over-accommodating others, we relinquish this control, allowing external demands to dictate our inner state. The result? Frustration, exhaustion, and a growing sense of unfulfillment. It's important to recognize the power of a thoughtful no. Saying no does not make you unkind, it makes you deliberate. The Stoics teach us to act with purpose, not out of compulsion or fear of judgment. When you choose to accommodate someone, let it be a conscious decision, not a reflexive one. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your thoughts are consumed by the needs of others, your soul becomes a shadow of itself. Let kindness be a conscious expression of your values, not a reaction to external pressures. Remember, the true danger of over-accommodating is not the loss of time or energy, but the loss of your identity. Guard your essence, and let your kindness flow from strength, not obligation. Number 3. When kindness breeds dependence. Picture this, a bird that never learns to fly because someone always carries it. What begins as an act of compassion can easily become an act of enabling. In the name of kindness, we sometimes strip others of their strength, fostering dependence where resilience could have flourished. The Stoic philosophers understood the paradox of excessive kindness. Seneca warns us in letters to Lucilius, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. Our role then is not to shield others from life's challenges, but to empower them to face these trials themselves. When kindness becomes overbearing, it can unintentionally teach those around us to rely on our support rather than developing their own problem-solving abilities. Consider the difference between helping someone up and carrying them indefinitely. The former uplifts, the latter weighs both parties down. The Stoic principle of sympathia, or mutual interconnection, reminds us that while we are all part of a greater whole, we are also responsible for our own actions and growth. By overextending our kindness, we disrupt this balance, burdening ourselves while stunting the growth of others. Take the story of a teacher who always gives the answers instead of teaching the method. The student might pass the test, but they remain ill-equipped for future challenges. Similarly, when we solve every problem for others, we deny them the opportunity to grow stronger through their struggles. This doesn't mean we should withhold kindness, but rather that we should offer it wisely. Marcus Aurelius advises in his Meditations, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Decide what to do and do it with purpose. Let your kindness serve a purpose, to empower, not to enable." When someone leans on you, ask yourself, am I truly helping them, or am I helping myself feel needed? The line is fine but crucial. True kindness lies in helping others become self-sufficient, even if it means stepping back and allowing them to falter. The danger here is twofold. Not only does it exhaust the giver, but it also weakens the recipient. Both parties become trapped in a cycle of dependence that erodes their independence and strength. The Stoic path calls us to break this cycle. By aligning our actions with reason and virtue, we can ensure our kindness uplifts without binding. Let us remember, the kindest act is often the one that teaches someone to stand tall on their own. Number 4. When kindness enables the wrong people. Kindness by its very nature draws people in, but not all who come seeking it have noble intentions. Seneca wisely observed, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay," a reminder to approach situations with careful thought rather than blind emotion. Too often, we assume that everyone values kindness as we do, but this assumption can blind us. When we fail to discern the character of those we help, our kindness may empower manipulative individuals. These are the people who see generosity as an opportunity to exploit rather than a virtue to emulate. Stoicism teaches us to act with reason, not impulse. Before extending a hand, we must ask ourselves, does this action align with my principles? Will it encourage growth, or will it breed dependency and selfishness in the other? If the answer is unclear, a pause can be our greatest ally. This isn't a call to harden our hearts, but to sharpen our awareness. True kindness is not just about giving, but about giving wisely. It is a reflection of both compassion and discernment. To be indiscriminately kind, without questioning the consequences, risks turning a noble act into a harmful one, not only for us, but for the recipient as well. Number 5. When kindness leads to self-neglect. Epictetus warned us, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And yet, how often do we sacrifice our well-being in the name of kindness? In giving endlessly to others, we risk losing touch with our own needs, our own essence. Kindness becomes dangerous when it transforms into self-neglect. Picture this, a flame that burns to warm others, but is never replenished. Over time, it dwindles, and eventually it extinguishes altogether. Stoicism reminds us that our primary duty is to nurture our inner flame, the very essence of our reason and strength. The world often glorifies selflessness, yet Stoic wisdom teaches us balance. Being kind does not mean abandoning your boundaries. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This strength lies in recognizing when to say no, when to pause, and when to prioritize ourselves so that we may return to others with renewed vigor. To care for others while neglecting oneself is not noble. It is unsustainable. True kindness begins with self-kindness. When we honor our limits, we uphold the integrity of our spirit, enabling us to serve others from a place of abundance rather than depletion. Number 6. Kindness as a tool for manipulation. Not every act of kindness is pure. Sometimes kindness is a mask, a currency to manipulate or control others. Seneca warned us, "What progress have I made? I have begun to be a friend to myself." Yet, in the hands of those with ill intent, kindness becomes a weapon, subtly pulling the strings of obligation and guilt. Imagine extending a hand in goodwill only to find it shackled by expectations. When kindness is laced with ulterior motives, it no longer serves virtue. It becomes a transaction. This is why the Stoic path demands vigilance. Our acts of kindness should never come with the silent expectation of something in return. And yet, we must remain equally alert to those who would exploit our goodwill for their own gain. Consider the lesson from Epictetus. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. The same applies to manipulation. If someone's feigned kindness seeks to bind you in invisible chains, your awareness is your shield. Respond with reason, not reactive emotion. Stoicism does not call for suspicion, but for discernment. It teaches us to observe intentions with clarity and act from a place of wisdom. True strength lies in offering kindness without losing oneself, and in recognizing when to step away from relationships that compromise your peace. Number 7. The quiet power of detachment. In a world where emotions are often seen as guides to our actions, Stoicism offers a radical alternative: detachment. Kindness, when rooted in emotional attachment, often leads to suffering. The Stoic rejects this chain of dependence. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This is not a mere reflection on intellectual pursuits, but on emotional sovereignty. To detach does not mean to reject relationships or the act of being kind. It means to detach from the need for validation, from the overwhelming desire to be needed. True kindness is not rooted in a dependency on others' approval or in the hope of return. It is an expression of one's inner strength and virtue, given freely, without expectation. This detachment is what protects us from the ravages of manipulation. When we allow ourselves to become emotionally entangled in kindness, it no longer serves us. It serves only to make us vulnerable. And vulnerability, when misplaced, leads to emotional debt. We begin to feel as though we owe something to others when, in truth, our sole responsibility is to ourselves and the maintenance of our inner peace. Consider how many times we have acted kindly, not because we wished to do so, but because we feared the judgment of others or the possibility of a backlash. These are moments when kindness becomes a slave to societal pressure. Stoics refuse to be slaves. They act with integrity, not because of external forces, but because it aligns with their rational nature. Number 8. The ultimate lesson. True kindness is self-mastery. The final lesson we must learn from Stoicism regarding kindness is that true kindness is a form of self-mastery. It is not an act of submission, but rather an act of sovereignty over one's desires and emotions. It is only when we have mastered our own internal world that we can give to others without becoming entangled in their expectations. The Stoic philosopher Seneca reminds us, "No man is good who is not good to himself." To be truly kind, we must first be kind to ourselves. This means understanding our boundaries, recognizing our limitations, and being willing to refuse those who seek to use our kindness as a tool for their own benefit. It's not that we stop being kind, it's that we give from a place of power and control, rather than from a place of neediness. Think of kindness not as a commodity to be traded, but as an unshakable virtue to be displayed, regardless of external conditions. True kindness arises from an internal foundation that is rooted in self-sufficiency. in emotional intelligence, and in a deep understanding that our well-being is independent of the approval or actions of others. To embrace this Stoic path of kindness is to become a force of nature, unaffected by the whims of others, guided only by one's rationality and sense of duty. As you continue on this journey, reflect on this essential truth. Kindness is not what we do for others, but what we do for ourselves. When you can give without attachment, without expectation, without fear of rejection, then and only then do you embody the true essence of Stoic kindness. Conclusion: as we reflect on the Stoic lessons about kindness, it becomes clear that true kindness is not a weakness, it is a profound strength. When we stop giving to others in order to satisfy our own emotional needs, we free ourselves from the chains of manipulation and dependence. We act with virtue, not to gain favor or recognition, but because it is aligned with our rational nature. Through Stoicism, we can learn to give without attachment, to be kind without sacrificing our own integrity, and to live with a sense of inner power that cannot be shaken by external forces. By applying these Stoic principles, we can transform kindness from a dangerous and exhausting act into one of the most empowering tools in our lives. It is through mastering ourselves that we can truly master our actions and interactions with others. If you found these Stoic insights valuable and thought-provoking, take a moment to like this video and comment below with your thoughts on how Stoicism has impacted your understanding of kindness. What aspect of kindness do you think you need to detach from the most? Share your thoughts and let's continue this discussion. Remember, Stoicism is not just a philosophy, it's a way of life.